Welcome to the SIWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SIWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier podcast. We're here with one of our new guest hosts, Nunzio, and he comes to us with a background, various areas from hockey to entrepreneurship to a whole bunch of other things. So, Nunzio, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we'll get into the backstory. So, what are you up to these days?
For sure. Thanks for having me. So right now I'm serving as the CEO of buyandsellbusiness.com. Essentially, it's an online platform where people can buy, sell, and grow all types of businesses in the micro market, from SaaS to Main Street to e-commerce. And at our core, we're really driven as an organization to make business ownership real and business exits easy for people around the world. We truly believe that a stronger economy and better future is possible when people wake up in the morning loving what they do. And business ownership is that viable path or is a viable path towards that. And that's a message, we're trying to get out every single day. So that's consuming a lot of my time right now.
Sounds good. So before we dive into that, let's rewind and go back in time. So what was Nunzio like as a kid? Are there any kind of early fond memories that you have? What were you like growing up?
You know what, as far as what I've been told, I was super energetic. I was curious. As I grew older, I became, extremely reliable, focused and goal-oriented. I was, and I still am, extremely organized, and always had these lists of things to do or accomplish. I was what
was on some of the early things on those lists?
Oh my God, it'd be like, I would have a list of, certain movies that were coming out, and I had to go, purchase those DVDs or a list of Goosebump books that I wanted to read. And, because I'm so, goal oriented and driven, it'd kind of be a checklist that, I would have to complete. So I remember being like that as a child. And I was also a pretty strong athlete and a pretty good student.
Mm-hmm. So how did that kind of happen in life? So we were talking off air, and you end up doing a stint in hockey. So obviously that athleticism translated to that there. So what was that? I mean, folks tend to start sports, especially when they get to a higher caliber level. They start very early. So what are kind of your memories of getting into the hockey world?
Yeah, for me, it was interesting because my dad was pretty busy when I was younger, and he asked my mom if she could go register for me, register for hockey. And for 3 years straight, my mom would come back and say, no, registration's full. And my dad figured out that she was lying because she didn't want me to play hockey. She was scared that I would get hurt. Okay. So one year my dad said, this is, absolutely ridiculous. I'm going and I'm registering. And he, at 7 years old, he signed me up for hockey. And the rest is history. I signed up relatively later. Some of these kids now are starting hockey at 2-3 years old. So I was 7, and the whole year, I remember that whole year I was a defenseman. But the last championship day, the coach was, or the last championship game, the coach asked who wanted to go in net. And I remember it like it was yesterday. My dad bought me a brand new stick, and I was really excited to play with it. But then, my mind started going towards, hey, it'd be really cool to go in net. I wouldn't mind doing that. And I put my hand up. My dad put my hand down. I put my hand up. And then eventually my coach looked at me and said, it looks like you want to go in net. And I'm like, yeah, I do. A long story short here, I went in net and I played unbelievable. And there was someone in the audience that was sort of scouting or looking at talent. And I was selected to play in the top tier league for 8-year-olds in the Greater Toronto area. And then from there, hockey was a very big part of my life.
Sounds good. So what does that life look like? Because for a normal kid, it's going to school and kind of whatever 9 to 3 or whatever the hours are nowadays. But
Yeah.
on top of that, now you have tons of practice, tons of this and that. So what is like as an 8-year old who's kind of quote unquote drafted into these top tier area? What does life look like there?
Yeah, if I map out sort of my journey since I was a little kid, it was always about, family, sports,
Hmm.
and as I got older, business, right? And whether it was sports or business, family was always at the center. And both sports and business demand you to be, prepared mentally, physically, and emotionally. And I started understanding that at a very young age because the reality is, whether I was, younger training as an athlete or now, building a business, there are great highs, terrible lows, and stress.
Hmm.
And many, ignore the last two, which is an extremely important part of the journey because you need to know how to manage them. So I would say, sports and business and having my family there with me along that way, really helped me understand how to manage, terrible lows and stress and how to have that winning attitude to keep on moving forward.
And do you have an example of like how you learned? Like, was there a like particular lesson or a particular like instance to say like yeah, I'm super stressed, I'm super low, I'm like we just lost a huge game or something like that, and then you were able to manage that? Do you recall an instance?
There's so many, right? There's always these micro defeats, right? You had a bad practice, you let in a weak goal, you had a bad game, you were forced to conduct yourself with humility, keep your chin up, and make sure that you're prepared for tomorrow, right? You have to quickly leave those micro defeats in the past and move forward as quickly as possible. It was always about consistency, right? A lot of that plays into my business career too now.
Hmm. And was there a particular like kind of moment or tip or trick or something that you had to say like, you know what, bad game, bad goal, whatever, but tomorrow is another one and next one and something that the folks kind of need because I know there's people have their routines and their rituals and stuff like that. I don't know
Yes.
for yourself if you have something similar that you had.
Yeah, no, I definitely was a person of routine. But the biggest thing that helped me get through the micro defeats was understanding that there is a tomorrow.
Mm.
There is another chance and another shot to make it right,
Hmm.
and looking forward to that. Always having faith, right? Um, you know, I think a good thing to do in life is always address like the brutal reality of these micro defeats or of today, but always have faith that there's a better opportunity or a better chance tomorrow. And I think that's what really helped me get through those hard times.
Yeah, and I think what I took onto that just to add a little bit is to reflect a little bit and take a
Of
lesson from
course.
what just happened and not just kind of repeat the same mistake over and over again, but actually say, you know what, next time I'll do this and that, or I'll notice this and that. And it still might not come out perfect, but at least tomorrow's a new day. There's another opportunity. Maybe I'll get it right and maybe I won't, and then we'll continue on. So that's
Yeah,
awesome.
as an athlete, reflection and visualization, is a massive part of the game.
Mhm.
So, those two, I guess, mechanisms really help you move forward,
Mhm.
or at least not stay stuck, right?
Mhm. For
That's the
sure.
biggest thing. Yeah.
So as you're growing up, I mean, you're 8 years old, 9, 10, 11, all that sort of stuff. You're still young, right? So were there a lot of like influences? Because there isn't necessarily like a big playbook for this sort of stuff, right? So I presume you had the support of your team members, but were there other family members that were also like at high levels of hockey or people around you that, I could look up to them and kind of learn from them? Or is it more like, yeah, you just had to figure it out on your own? Like what were some of those influences that are around you?
Yeah, I've always leaned on mentors,
Mm.
whether it was my hockey coaches or now, my business colleagues. I've always leaned on mentors for, guidance or as much validation as possible, making sure that I'm going the right direction, but
Mhm.
understanding it's my direction, right? So I have to take everything with a grain of salt. But when I think about that question about influence, like, I think to myself, I'm 35. I've been married for 8 years to a wonderful woman. I have two incredible kids. And like anyone else, a lot of what I do and how I think has been shaped by my family at the end of the day, right? My kids give me that purpose. My wife picks me up when I'm down. My mother showed me the power of getting things done and never giving up, that the real reward was accomplishment and getting things done. And my father showed me what being disciplined can accomplish, how powerful that invisible, quiet, and consistent work is. So, I fundamentally believe that if you're not learning new things, moving forward with optimism, and prioritizing your family, whether it's business or sports, you're going to stop doing great things and useful things in every facet of your life. So for me, it's all about family, perseverance, and discipline. That's what defines me.
For sure. Yeah, that lifelong learning is definitely something to strive for, where like just because you're out of school, then doesn't mean that the learning stops. So speaking of
Exactly.
that, I mean, like a lot of the listeners, they would have had the career path of high school and trying to pick a university, college career path and stuff like that. It's probably a little bit of a different decision for you. So what was that process like to kind of like navigate the whole high school process, or and more on like the academic side? Was there even that sort of side, or was that just kind of something that was there?
Yeah. So, from the high school side of it, um, there was a lot of functions or events that I had to miss because I had to balance the demanding schedule of competitive hockey. But academics was always a priority for me.
Okay.
I grew up with my father constantly telling me, you have to be a gentleman, a scholar, and an athlete. Those were sort of the pillars of my childhood, and I aimed to prioritize every single one of those. So, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but school, and there was this harmony around school and hockey for me my entire life.
Yeah, I think there was. I think for me, it's more of a, well, what is that progression? Because for me, it's always like high school, you got to pick a university and then you got to do your degree and then go get a job, right?
Yeah.
Slightly different path where, okay, you're basically in different tiers of
Yeah.
hockey and kind of growing up. So what's the typical cadence where at some point, I mean, in any sport, it's the professional league, so NHL in this case, like where does that kind of work its way into like the path and the roadmap? Is it on the high school side at the end of high school and university, or like where is that?
Well, yeah. So what ended up happening for me was, at the end of high school, I had to make this decision because, like I said, my schedule was pretty demanding. I
Mhm.
had to make the decision to either, pause with on university and then pursue my professional career, and that's what I did. Um, so after high school, I was playing professional hockey, in the U.S. and Europe and in a few other areas, trying to, crack it to the big leagues. And that's why, I ended up going back to business school at a later age.
Mhm. And talk to us about that decision, because that's not a very easy one, right? It's I mean, you worked a lot since 8 years old. You've been training kind of for this opportunity, and then things are going your way and things are not going your way. Like, how does that work in your head? Like the discussions that you have with mentors and things like that. What was that process like?
Um, it was scary. So, like I said before, I leaned on my family to help guide me and try and make the right decisions. But there was a massive amount of reflection and
Mhm.
just me talking to myself. What did I want to do? Um, and I think that was one of the biggest decisions in my life was understanding and realizing that, okay, I need to walk away from hockey, and I need to go back to business school. And just to set some context up, when I went back to business school, I was 22 years old. And it was a big deal. Like, 22 sounds young, but I was the oldest in the class, and it tested my comfort level. So hockey definitely taught me the power of knowing when to walk away or try harder. Um, and I needed that lesson because I'm the type of person where if I start something, I'll fight tooth and nail to make it succeed. Um, but what hockey made me realize was if something stops me along the way, and I've done everything I can or I could to avoid failure, then I'll need to accept it and move forward. And that's one thing that I really appreciate about the sport. That's definitely one thing that has taught me.
Sounds good. So as you were making your decision to walk away, was it always just I'm going to go into business, or was there other things like would you become a doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, that sort of stuff? Or it's like no, business. And there specifically, obviously, you went kind of that entrepreneurial route. Was that always kind of at the forefront, or were there different things? I might try accounting, finance, HR, things like that. Like how was that decision to go back into the world of academia like?
So 7-year-old me wanted to be a veterinarian,
Okay.
and then I quickly realized that 22-year-old me did not want to be a veterinarian. But another thing at the time, I had friends that were attending the same business school, so there was some influence in giving it a shot and seeing what happens. Just
Right.
taking that step and seeing what happens. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to tell you the truth.
Mhm.
First I started, thinking, okay, maybe I could be like my father, right? An accountant. And, after a couple courses, like, nope, that's not for me. And then I ended up, finding a lot of interest in entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
right? And I started really noticing that there's a lot of similarities between entrepreneurship and sports, right?
Hmm.
And sports in general, it teaches us so many lessons that are transferable to business, right? Whether it's endurance, sacrifices, competitiveness, being a self-starter. So I didn't know it at the time, but I loved creating things,
Hmm.
whether it was cooking or creating fake business plans. I remember when I was 7, I created this business plan called One Stop Pet Shop. Um, it did everything from training to grooming to retail, whatever. And this was before, I believe it was before PetSmart was even a thing. But what started clicking was, the young me and the older me. And that was, I loved documenting things and achieving them. And in the end, creation and turning an idea into something real is the essence of entrepreneurship, which is my true passion. And that's what I found in business school within the first, I say, year and a half.
Sounds good. So walk us through a little bit about your kind of first forays into that entrepreneurial journey, right? So the first business that you started, whether it was successful or not or whatever, like what was that trajectory between kind of the early entrepreneur days and then to where you are now?
Oh man, I started. It's sort of like that saying with books, right? You buy more books than you could read. I probably started more books than or I started more businesses than I could manage effectively, at least. But as a kid, I started everything from a promotion company with a friend. Oh my God, a wellness basket company with a friend.
Okay.
A payment company with a friend. A
And these are all
clothing
different
company.
friends, right? That's not the same
All
friend.
no, yeah, all different friends.
Yeah.
The good thing about this, my group of friends is we're all like-minded, so we're always interested in starting something and seeing where it goes and adapting and learning along the ways. But yeah, I was always starting these businesses. But the main business that kind of propelled me to where I am now was the clothing line, because that was, I guess, the most, not the most lucrative, but built out the most,
Mm.
where we actually had, distributors and vendors and retailers carrying our clothing and whatnot. But we got to a point where, we didn't have the expertise or the resources to really grow it. So I started looking for ways to sell it. And that's, how I identified the opportunity for buyandsellabusiness.com.
Mhm. So out of all those businesses, what were a few notable lessons along the way? There's probably a whole book or even more that you could write about it, but are there maybe one or two or three lessons that you could share with kind of those budding entrepreneurs out there? They want to start something with their friend. Like, what are a couple of those key lessons that would be helpful? The stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Yeah. So as far as, those lessons, I would say, you know, pick your partners wisely.
Hmm.
Um, Understand what your core competency is. Understand that there will always be someone doing more work than someone else, and that's fine, as long as you're communicating that and everything is transparent. Um, and then a couple deeper ones that I wish I knew earlier. The first would be to listen to the things that you don't want to hear.
Hmm.
To really acknowledge that you don't know everything, you don't have all the answers to everything. To acknowledge that growth happens with hard work and difficult conversations. The things that most people don't want to do or listen to, and to really acknowledge that being curious and always learning and asking the right questions is how you grow, create awesome teams, products, and businesses. And the second thing I wish I knew when I was younger or earlier, was to understand that things happen gradually and then suddenly. And there's a
Okay.
famous quote around that. And what that means is, be patient, right? Focus on creating good habits and investing in the right things, because those habits and things lead to good decisions, and that all adds up and compounds in life.
Sounds good. A couple of things that I took away from that is for the last one, it's kind of that overnight success that took 10 years to build, that sort of thing,
Exactly.
that
Yes.
it's a gradual and then it happens quickly. And then on things like the listen to things you don't want to hear, that's actually a very interesting one where to me that speaks to like self-awareness, where oftentimes if a bunch of people around you are kind of saying the same things, well, if what's the expression, if you point one finger then three point back. So it
Yeah.
seems like you may have to look inwardly to say, okay, what is it that I need to learn and get a learning from this. And then things like picking your partners and understanding core competencies, all that sort of stuff, that's probably again probably multiple episodes on its own just to kind of dig deep into each one of those. So I think that's amazing information, and I hope that we can go into some of these in further detail. Just to kind of end off on the current buy and sell. So ultimately, you had this clothing line, you wanted to sell that. What was kind of that journey to create kind of what you're doing right now?
Yeah, so out the gate, being a person of, documenting things or having my checklists, right away I knew, okay, well, I made a list. What am I good at, and what am I, not good at? And I went to go find people that could help me with the parts that I was not good with. So I sold, sweat equity at the beginning to find my strengths and or my weaknesses. Sorry, and I brought in those people to help me build out my idea. And that's what we did. The first year and a half was me going out there, pitching this idea to potential business partners, and then inspiring them to join a journey for free, and help me build something out for free, and see how it works. And that's now 8 years later, and we've done over $2 billion in transaction value, and we're growing triple digits in every sort of KPI that we measure.
That's amazing. So it sounded like it was kind of like a kid with an idea, right? And basically that visionary is to kind of convince people and put kind of that aura of like, hey, can you build this for me? And then kind of iterate through that to yeah, definitely a level of success. And there's probably a lot more that we can look forward to hearing and seeing from you. So where could folks find out more about you, and then if they want to connect, and what are some of the kind of future aspirations that we can look forward to hearing from you?
Sure. Yeah. The best way to connect with me would probably be Twitter. I'm pretty active on Twitter, and it's just at Nunzio Presta.
Okay.
If you want to learn more about buyandsellbusiness.com, it's in its name, buyandsellbusiness.com. As far as, what the future looks like, buyandsellbusiness.com will be the go-to place for people looking to buy and sell all types of businesses in the micro market around the world. That's definitely number one. And the second, at 90, I will look back and see that I created a life of freedom for my family, so they can truly pursue their passions and dreams. That's my ultimate goal. And I think that's another. There's creation, but then the other essence of entrepreneurship is freedom, right? You want to hopefully create as much freedom for people as possible, so they could be passionate and their dreams could come to a reality.
For sure. And I talk to a lot of people where their aspirations are to create a lot of money and build a lot of wealth. But really, it's for the purpose of, as you said, like freedom. Like very few people want to be like kind of that Scrooge McDuck with a vault full of coins where all they do is swim in it and all that sort of stuff. People want to be able to just do whatever they want whenever they want. And that's really what that kind of money buys for them. And then hopefully have a lot of fun along the way too.
You listen, everyone wants to make money, but I don't think that should be the go-to goal, right? Because at the end of the day, you tell me, what you can do with $1 million if your ankle's chained to a desk.
Sure. 100%. So yeah, words of wisdom and a good place to end. So thanks so much, Nunzio, for sharing your story. And then, yeah, I think there's a lot of topics to kind of dive into a little bit more deeply. And hopefully we have you back for a future episode.
Absolutely. This was awesome. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Nunzio.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the SIWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.